Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between Mini Boris, aka Red Legion, leading the forces of the Empire, up against the Dark Lord himself, Falcon, and his Wood Elf hordes. Should be a fun game indeed. I believe this was played on Falcon's latest live stream, where he was kind of bringing some Mimi looks like tree-focused builds, so we'll have a look in that in a second. But first, let's go through Red Legion's Empire forces. And the front line, we have chevroned up spearmen and swordsmen, which isn't a bad shout at all. Of course, these chevroned up swordsmen would be much better against dryads than regular ones, and at the same time, they can pull apart Eternal Guard with decent efficiency. We have Sigma Suns in the centre pocket, unbreakable swordsmen are going to be doing the Lord's work here for the forces of the Empire. Pretty decent front line all round, should be able to hold and soak up missile fire. Not kind of putting too much money into it, but at the same time it should be able to deal with kind of enemy infantry. In the secondary line, we actually have handgunners, which I'm not 100% against. I mean, they can do decent damage up against Treemen, Treekin, and the like. But in this matchup as well, they can get sniped out relatively quickly by Way Watchers, Glade Guard, all those other kind of pesky Elven archer forces. So in the back line, in Deep Reserve, as expected, we do have triple Empire Knights here, or looks like double and one unit of Knights of the Blazing Sun. Going Mass Cavalry is very common in this matchup, very good for running down skirmishers and running through the front line of the Wood Elves. For Lordship, we do indeed have Volkmar the Grim, the best Empire pick in my opinion, up against Wood Elves, as he is of course unbreakable, has a huge health pool and comes in with some really nifty buffs. Grand Soulfire, Grand Shield of Faith, as well as Grand Hammer of Sigma. That banishment can be pretty useful as well. We have an Empire Captain on horseback just to assist here. And it looks like we have a very nasty Templehof Luminarch here. Regiment of Renowned Luminarch, but honestly, it's going to do pretty good in this matchup. It's an incredibly risky pick, but it can do some really decent damage to kind of a lot of the Wood Elf Lords, including Orion, Treeman, and the like. Now, for the forces of Falcon and the Wood Elves here, we have an absolute horde of Glade Riders. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, some of which have Hagbane tips and some of which are normal. Hagbane, of course, do apply poison, and I'm a massive fan of these Glade Riders in recent months. They're so good. They're pretty decent in melee. And at the same time, really good long-range damage with a surprising amount of AP, and they're incredibly fast. For a front line, it looks like we do have Dryads dotted across the board. Going to be backed up as well by a couple of units of Treekin who are going to be really needed here to pin in those enemy cav and shut them down. Now we have a really kind of a funky hero core here. We have a basic Treeman who is, he struggles, to be honest, in my opinion. Don't think he's particularly great. But, he's slow, he's ponderous, but at the same time, at least he's got a lot of HP and will be able to beat down some swordsmen and the like. We do have the Ancient Treeman, who in my opinion is a little bit more viable than a basic one. He's going to be coming in with Earthblood, and at the same time, he is pretty tanky. And he should be able to go toe-to-toe Volkmar as well relatively effectively if they do double goon him. We have double Branch Wraith as well, down here on the ground, one of which is coming in with Pendulum, the other of which is just completely naked, so just leading the forces of the Wood Elves here. So a really fun kind of themed build overall, as the battle does get underway. Over on this right-hand flank, you can see the Glade Riders instantly spot the threat of the Luminarch and try to assassinate it very quickly. It is going to launch a shot in, and boom, what a connection! It slaps that Ancient Treeman along the face, who is going to be doing a nice heal. Down about over a third health there in one shot. It's pretty crazy stuff. Volkmar is going to ride headlong into the enemy, but he's going to get roadblocked here by the Treeman. We have nice Overwatch fire, though, coming in from the handgunners. Over on the other side, it looks like the Luminarch is dangerously close here to being sniped out. Nice counter pressure is pushed in by the Empire Knights to drive back these Glade Riders. They just need to force them off. This Luminarch needs to stay active and shooting, otherwise these Treemen could cause a bit of problems. A lovely overarching fire coming in by both the handgunners so far, as well as a net of Amantok is keeping this Ancient Treeman pinned down here, and he's going to take huge amounts of damage coming in from these guys. And he's certainly not having a fun time at all. The handgunners are still, relatively safe behind the lines. Lovely bombardment spell coming in as well. It's going to force that Treeman away, but at the same time, the Templehof has been forced back as well. And really nice play here with these skirmishers. Glade Riders force their way through the gap and going to be bouncing between the handgunners, which these guys need to go down. But it looks like it's a tiny bit, a little bit late here, as the Ancient Treeman is going to get forced off. But there's still the regular one here who can do some decent work. So he needs to be protected at all costs, and his handgunners are starting to be shut down here. Looks like the Luminarch has re-established itself here, and if you can get 1 or 2 more shots in, it can be really pivotal in this game. You can see the Empire Knights are being kited back by the Glade Riders, who are doing some really good, consistent damage to these guys. The Treeman also popping in there, trying to help out. As far as the main front line does go, Spearmen are slowly losing to Dryads, although a lovely rear charge coming by the Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to see to that. A huge shot from the Luminarch does come in. It looks like it's going to be able to take out the Treeman as well, and things are looking pretty bleak for the forces of the Wood Elves at the moment. However, they have finally forced their way through this front line. They should be able to shut down these handguns a little bit more successfully now. The Glade Riders have swarmed the Luminarch in the back line, and yeah, this Finn is definitely gone here. But it's paid its weight in gold here, helping take down both Treemen. It's very impressive stuff. Now, one thing that is going really well so far for the Wood Elves is these Glade Riders, who have been used very expertly so far. They're picking apart Empire Knights left, right and centre. They've been used to shut down handgunners for a time as well. Looks like Dryads have managed to push their way into the back line, but without the 2 gigantic Treemen, these Knights are going to be a real massive pain to deal with, as well as Volkmar the Grim. I'm not sure if he's going to have enough stopping power to actually punish the moustache-twirling villain, at least in the Wood Elves' perspective. I suppose he's a hero for the Empire. Handguns have now finally been broken, with some nice charges coming from the Glade Riders, sandwiched between them and some Dryads. In the back line, it looks like the same is happening to the second unit as well. Over on this side, it looks like the Treeman managed to block in a ton of Knights of the Blazing Sun, but they do fire damage. It's not the worst situation for them. Being shot in the rear and then charged by Glade Riders is not a fun time for any Knight, and it looks like they are going to be struggling a little bit here. Glade Riders, once again, just going to be counter-skirmishing at these Knights where possible. Over in the main line, it looks like both the Branch Waves have managed to rally here. They are decent melee combatants in their own right. 1 or 2 well-timed pendulums as well on these cav could really help. Sigma Suns are now getting surrounded. They will fight to the death, however. So, up to 9 kills, 10 kills, not doing anything too spectacular, unfortunately, but they are holding. Glade Riders are now driving back the handgunners, but getting caught up on some Empire Knights as well. Good kind of diligent play by Red Legion, trying to keep the pressure on now that he's slightly in the driving seat, as the power of balance would suggest. But at the same time, there is a ton of Glade Riders around, and perhaps if they can all focus fire down Volkmar, there's a chance, but he's just so goddamn tanky in this matchup. Up in the high ground here, handgunners are being run over by the glorious Glade Riders, and be forced back and driven away from the forest as they loose a few more arrow shots as well over in the direction of this block of Knights. Treeman are starting to roam towards the Empire Knights as well, and yeah, they're pretty slow, ponderous chaps, but Red Legion's micro is certainly going to be tested here to make sure he is paying attention. These guys do start to lumber towards the Knights. Over in the far distance, it looks like Knights of Blazing Sun have managed to clear up some Dryads. Good use of their time. They kind of want to bounce around at this point, try and pick off isolated units of the Wood Elves. You can't catch the Glade Riders really, so you're going to have to let them use up their ammunition. You might as well try and do as much damage as possible while you can. Spearmen do have a nice bonus versus large, but they don't really have the AP here to deal with the Treeman, who are going to stamp and kind of push these Spearmen around as Glade Riders swarm into the back lines, launching into these Spearmen here, doing some pretty cool animations all round as Men of the Empire get flung around, and they are going to be broken here. So at this point, if I'm the forces of the Empire, I'm trying to consolidate most of my forces into a singular clump, unless there is any kind of units that I can isolate and chase off with Knights. As looks like Empire Knights did get kind of charged here as well. And this is a really fast mobile kind of core that the Wood Elves have left. And Glade Riders have pretty decent melee stats all round, at least for kind of skirmish cav. So they can actually swarm in here and overwhelm Knights relatively effectively. So we do have Spearmen running for the trees over here. 39 of those guys left, but Glade Riders, 19 of them, are going to just do some good play, get some good value, chase these guys off, shatter them, and try and push that balance power back, because it is heavily in favour of the Empire here. Despite this, it's still anyone's game. I think the power balance is so bad because Volkmar is alive on full health, and looking at it, the ammunition is pretty low on the Glade Riders. They need to save every single shot they have in an attempt to destroy the Volkmar himself. Anything else could kind of be cleared up by decent cycle charging at this point. It looks like some Empire Knights getting a little bit overzealous. They are kind of getting dragged back here by some Glade Riders who are waiting the support of the Treeman, doing a couple of shots in there as well before getting a lovely charge in their own right. And these Empire Knights are going to go down very quickly here. But luckily there's a Empire Captain charging in gloriously, and he is leading the vanguard for Volkmar to follow up and kind of swarm in here. If he has, if he has his bombardment spell, this could be doom for the Wood Elves, as the Glade Riders take huge burst damage there, start to break from the field, and I think that is going to cause a mass chain rout as well as army losses. So very well played to these two guys. Pretty damn awesome game with some really fun and interesting builds. So let's do a tiny little bit of analysis. Before we do get into that, however, though, I want to give a massive shout out to all you guys watching and who've been supporting the channel. Overnight, we actually hit 1000k subscribers, which is a huge milestone. I can't thank you guys enough. We are going to be doing a kind of celebration stream on tomorrow, which is going to be Wednesday, in the evening, British time, probably about 6:30 or 7 BST. And yeah, it's going to be good fun. I haven't fully decided what it's going to be yet, but we're going to be celebrating for a little while and kind of having some giveaways and all that kind of good stuff. So make sure to keep your eye out for that. Anyway, awesome game here between Red Legion, aka Mini Boris, and Falcon. Certainly bringing some memes as well in both forces. But, I mean, the Loomlark is not really too much of a meme. I don't know if he knew Falcon was doing this kind of Treeman-inspired build. And I think overall, it definitely paid for itself, doing huge damage with 2 big whacks on that ancient Treeman, as well as thumping the Treeman as well, forcing off of those giant threats. And overall, it's a pretty well balanced build, pretty damn decent. I'm a big fan of Volkmar the Grim here. I think the Spearmen, I'm not sure if they're needed quite so much. They did hold for a decent amount of time, but they get dragged down by Dryads, and they can even struggle up against Eternal Guard. I suppose it helps if you think your opponent is going to go Wild Rider kind of rush or whatever. But yeah, pretty decent build all around, really solid, massive fan of the Volkmar pick. However, he needs a caster, in my opinion, in this build as well. So maybe just drop, I'm not sure, maybe just drop one of the Spearmen or something, get a cheap caster with just like a Manticore summon or something, I think would be a good play. As for Falcon's build, clearly going for a bit of a kind of a stylized Mimi build here, but at the same time it certainly had some teeth. The poor ancient Treeman as well as the regular Treeman, they struggle to shine at the best of times, but in this matchup in particular, they kind of got hard countered here by the Loomlark, which is a bit unfortunate for that. But however, expert play with the Glade Riders. You can see they all got really decent kills and used how I like to see them use as kind of a crossbreed, where yes, you can do decent long range AP, you can poison units, slow down knights, drag them down through the dirt, but at the same time hopping into combat, shutting down knights by simply overwhelming them, chasing down breaking units. They're just such a good utility tool. I am, however, really hoping in the Wood Elf DLC that is going to be coming out. I don't think they've announced a release date or anything yet, but they've just kind of announced it is going to happen. As the next DLC. I'm hoping we do get some close combat Glade Riders as well. I think they'd be particularly good. So anyway guys, hope you did enjoy, and yeah, if you did, please feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you want to support me in any other way, I do have links to Patreon and all that kind of good stuff in the description, as well as my Discord, all the good stuff in case you want to send me replays, get involved in tournament scene, and all that kind of good stuff. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.